Here at the 22nd monthly Worthy Rally for Hope and Kindness. I'm so excited for you all to be here and greatly appreciate your support and showing some love and showing some kindness to our fabulous lineup of storytellers today. Some sharing their stories for the very first time, and others just taking the opportunity and feeling in their heart that they need to share this because someone in here that logged on today needs to hear what they have to say. Again, our goal is to inspire and empower others to own their truths, own who they are, and let them know that they are not alone in the challenges and the journey that life may have guided them toward. Everything just makes us stronger, right? Everything just makes us stronger. The quick logistics, we have our fabulous speakers. I will introduce each of them. They will each have 10 minutes to speak. They will keep track of their own time. And then while speakers are speaking, if you can relate to what they are saying, if you see them really going back to a time that was vulnerable for them as they're sharing their story and you feel like they need extra support, please either use a heart with your hands or do a heart emoji to let them know you understand where they're coming from. I can relate to you. You've got this, anything like that, because this is, after all, a rally about kindness. Why do I call it about hope as well? Because we all go through things and there's always hope to pull through it. Always hope. And all these speakers here today, and a lot of you I know here have pulled through your circumstances to come out at the end even stronger. So we are going to get started. And if you're not speaking, if I ask if you may put, please mute yourself. And also speakers, feel free and put on the chat, and anyone not speaking as well, anything you want to promote about yourself. If you have a book, if you have a link, if you have a community, I know many people here have many wonderful initiatives that we can all really support and be a part of. With that said, I always have to say this because there's always new people on. I always don't know what I'm going to start off with. I leave it up to my intuition and my heart to tell me what I need to disclose, what I need to share with the group today. So when I woke up today, the words that came to me was, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. And I've gone through a tough couple of weeks since our last Worthy Rally. One of my dear dogs passed away. And besides other things and my household, the flu and all these things, we tend to, when life throws us challenges, we tend to freeze. We tend to feel like a victim. We tend to feel like, why is this happening to me? I can't possibly take on one more thing. I'm already so stressed out. So we tend to get ourselves in that position, and we need to, what I learned through this, and many times that it's happened before, is that, yeah, these words, don't take it personally. Life happens. Life is not always going to be sunny. In fact, if it was always sunny, we would never be able to see the moon and the stars and the darkness, because there is light and darkness. It's like the moon and the stars. If it was always sunny, we wouldn't be able to feel other emotions like sadness or empathy or fear, or you name it, other emotions. And all the other emotions and darkness have this connotation at face value that they are negative, or they're not something that feel really good. But if we change our mindset to realize that those are there for a reason, because why would things exist if they weren't for a reason? That's what I firmly believe. Life would be completely different. we would be completely one-sided. We would be completely probably not empathetic, because we would always feel like everyone's just happy all the time. And that's not human. Human is emotions. People may feel happy, may look happy, just like on this call, or may have their life circumstances appear to be happy. Like if I wouldn't have shared that my dog passed away, or that my household was full of the flu, or that I'm dealing with some other personal family issues, or in my work, and blah, 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 blah. You wouldn't know anything is going on. It just takes sort of a visible clue, a visible indication, like the news and all this horrible stuff going on, and something that we read. Or the other day, I had baby bunnies, and there was a hole in my yard, and they unfortunately they didn't survive, so that added to my week. But at the end of the day, all this is happening regardless. Regardless if we see it or not. So we can't kid ourselves that it's always going to be a happy time, that it's always going to be perfect, and we're always going to feel good, because things that aren't so positive in our eyes are happening all the time. Even in people's minds, they're happening all the time. Someone contemplating suicide happens, unfortunately, all the time. So we can't take all those things personally, because imagine if we took, I mean, I'm really empathetic, but I have a fault that I take things so personally that my empathy becomes my weakness, because I feel sad in every situation that seems negative or sad for others. We have to realize that there is a reason for those things, a reason of healing, of someone trying to heal, of someone trying to get help, which is a good thing, of rebirth, of finding peace. We need to give life a chance and adore it and embrace it in all its colors and all its feelings and all of its phases. So don't take things personally is what came to me. And that's what came to me just now as well. So yeah, I'm sad about the things that have happened, but I'm also learning to embrace that I wouldn't have this mindset or these feelings, and realizing that we come out stronger and we can see the positive in things if I wouldn't have gone through those situations. So don't take things personally. Things are happening to you. Know that even though it's hard, it's there to either teach you something or make you stronger, or come up with something else so you can support another person through it all. With that said, I am so happy and excited to welcome our first speaker, Tim Dumas. Tim was introduced to me by another speaker, which often happens a lot, Jason, who was, if you didn't attend a past rally, check him out in a recording on YouTube, Jason Freeman. So Tim and I connected over a phone call a couple weeks ago, and Tim is just so bright and inspiring in the way he thinks. And during this time with the Great Resignation, and not only that, but people just seeming disengaged with so many areas of their life, he's all about really taking the time to find out what keeps people happy, what are their dreams, how can we re-engage others. And I love his work, and I love what he shared. And I was really curious as to why that was a passion of his. And hopefully today he will share that in his story. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Andrea. So happy to be with all of you today. As you were just giving your introduction there, I couldn't help but thinking about failures in our life. And I can't help thinking about the story of Thomas Edison creating the light bulb. And someone said to him, they said, how could you have gone on after 10,000 times you tried to create this light bulb and you failed and you failed and you failed and you failed again? And he said, it wasn't all that hard, because each time I knew that I was one step closer to creating that greatness I was meant to create. And in every failure that we have, I love the saying by John Maxwell, sometimes we win and sometimes we learn. We're one step closer to that greatness we were meant to achieve. I love that we're all here today, because every morning in our lives, I love to ask people, what's the first thing you did when you got up this morning? And today, one of the first things that you've done, especially if you're on the West Coast like me, is come onto this call, because every day of our lives, we have an opportunity to be a better husband, father, brother, mother, sister, wife, colleague, coworker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever our calling in life is. And when we do something positive to positively impact that, that's when greatness happens. It doesn't happen by accident. But when, like Thomas Edison, we chip away and to create that light bulb every single day, we don't know what the day is that we're going to actually break through and create that. But one day we will. And it's all about keeping on going forward. So if I could use one word to describe all of this, it would be leadership. Leadership is one of the most imperative human qualities of any human interaction. But I don't know about you, but when I was in school and when I was in college, we rarely talked about that word. In my 4-year business degree, I can probably count on one hand how often we described it or discussed it. Yet when we get into the workforce, when we get into lives, when we get into our family life, it's one of the most important aspects, one of the most important traits we can ever have. And so when I walked onto the job that day, nearly 2 decades ago now, to be my first day as a business leader, as a manager in a company, I'm sorry to tell you that it was a disaster. Did anyone else have that experience? Did anyone walk onto the job as a new leader, a new manager, and they were amazing on day one? Because if you were, I need to talk to you. And if you weren't, I need to talk to you as well. But my day was a disaster. So I had it all planned out. I was ready to give that most inspiring Vince Lombardi speech to my group of people that was going to inspire them, make them love me, and make them do amazing things. So as I'm driving to work that day, I'm rehearsing it over and over in my head. I walk into that room with all the confidence in the world to only be greeted by eyes looking at me like this and mouths dropping, only to say, why? My speech was great, but they said, why should I follow you? We barely know you. You haven't actually engaged with us yet. And I realized at that moment, I didn't actually understand what leadership was. I'd gone through all this education, I'd gone through life, but I had yet to understand what it meant to truly lead people. So, like any great child of the 80s, I went to the dictionary, Merriam-Webster. What's the definition of leadership? And I'm sorry to tell you, if Merriam-Webster was in my 3rd grade class, they would have failed, because the definition of leadership in the dictionary is the act of leading. You can't define a word by the root of its own word. That doesn't make any sense. I quickly understood that our world doesn't understand what this thing really is. So I had to go on a decade-long journey trying to figure out what it means to be a leader. So I thought back to my life and I thought, where in my life did I know that I was in the presence of a great leader? And you know what? I thought back to my elementary school. And in my elementary school, I went to this little elementary school in a little town in Victoria, British Columbia, called St. Patrick's. And every person who had been associated with that school for the last decade or more at that time knew who the leader of the school was. And the leader of the school was not the principal. It was not a head teacher. It was not even a teacher. The leader of that school was our janitor, Mrs. Peruzzi. See, she led with such love in a position that had nothing to do with leadership. But when you ask people about going to that school, they said, she's the leader of the school and she's the best thing about the school. See, she didn't just clean up, trash on the ground or, clean up after a kid getting sick. She took care of people first. She walked down the hallway. She said hello to everybody. She hugged all the little kids that went by. When I was in the 3rd grade, my little brother was in the 2nd. We were playing a tackle football game on the playground. And at the time, I was a 4'3", 48-pound linebacker, and he was a 4'1", 39-pound running back. And as we came and clashed on the playground, snap, his collarbone snapped. Almost like an angel coming out of thin air, Mrs. Peruzzi just shows up. As my brother's crying on the ground, she picks him up, all 5'0" of her, 100 pounds, and she just starts walking. See, Forrest Gump, the movie, hadn't even been created yet, but it was kind of like Forrest Gump. She just started walking. She picks him up and starts walking to the hospital. Now, the hospital was only about 3 blocks away, but she must have had, biceps of steel to be carrying this kid blocks to the hospital. But that's what true leadership really was. And when I thought about, when I was on this journey trying to figure out what it really meant to be a leader, the first thing I thought of was Mrs. Peruzzi's love. Yes, love. Now, I know what you're saying. If I told somebody I loved them at work, I'd get a call from HR the next day. I'd probably be fired, but I'd at least be suspended. But you know what the strange thing about this is? I started to research this whole love thing. And the Harvard Business Review did a study a few years ago, and it asked people, and it was a whole study about love and caring in the workplace. And guess what they found? When people feel more loved and cared for in the workplace, they do better work. I know that's shocking. I've stated that fact many times. No one's ever said, Tim, this boggles my mind. I can't believe it. But yet, when we talk about loving people in the workplace, almost every single time I get people say, whoa, I have a hard enough time loving my kids and my spouse. I don't know if I can bring that into the workplace. But if we really want to engage people, if we really want to change the world, that's what we need. See, one of the problems with our English language is we only have one word for love. The Greeks have multiple. And when we're talking about love in the workplace in our North American culture, we're not talking about what the Greeks would call eros or erotic love. We're talking about what they would call philia love, the love between a brother and a sister, friends, cousins. That's the love that we're talking about. We're talking about the agape love, that unconditional love. So are you telling me that if the person sitting beside you in the cubicle beside you knew that you unconditionally loved them and you would have their back no matter what? So when they made a mistake, you weren't going to the boss saying, hey, it was him, it was her, don't come after me. But if we actually work together to co-create greatness in the workplace, in the world, would not that be a great place? When we actually state that, light bulbs go off and people realize, I need to find a way to operationalize love in the workplace. The one way I've found that we can actually love people without getting fired from HR in the workplace is by dreaming with them. I work with an organization called Jack's Beer, Wine and Spirits. We have retail stores throughout the province of British Columbia. And we instituted about 5 years ago what we call dream sessions. We ask each person in the organization, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you achieve and how can I support you? Our job is not necessarily to create more operating profit for the company. Yes, we're all looking to do that, but the way we do that is by loving each other and supporting them through dreaming with them. One of my first dream sessions we had, I asked Rhonda that question. And Rhonda came to me, she said, Tim, nobody's ever asked me that. Not even my parents asked me that. Often we're asked that as we're little kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you dream to be? But Rhonda had never been asked that question. I said, just dream, Rhonda. It took her weeks to come back to me. She comes back into the office one day and says, Tim, I have it. I wish one day my dream is to have a new car. I never thought I could have a new car. I have an old beater. It keeps me from getting to work on time often because it often breaks down. And I said, well, Rhonda, here's what we're going to do. She said, but I can never afford one. I said, can you just prove it to me that you can't afford one? Go down to the car dealership, go see the financing department and prove to me you cannot afford a new car. I knew she probably could. So I held her accountable. She went down there. She went down to prove herself wrong. And the very next week, she walks in the office. She's holding this set of keys. She's clicking them furiously. She grabs me by the arm and says, Tim, you got to come to the parking lot. I said, hey, Rhonda, I'm busy. I can't come to the parking lot with you. She said, I don't care. You're coming to the parking lot with me. We run into the parking lot together. And as she clicks her keys, she jumps into this brand new blue Mazda 3. She said, Tim, I have a new car. Can you imagine the loyalty of how we work together now. Can you imagine when things go wrong, when we have difficulties, when she understands that we love and dream together, how we'll co-create together, we'll make the company great and hopefully make the world great at the same time. That's what happens when we love and dream with people in the workplace. And that's what happens when we love and dream with people in our lives. So when I look to really figure out that definition of leadership that was lost in the dictionary, I finally found it when I stumbled upon a gentleman named Alex Havard, and he defined it simply as this: leadership is the act of striving for greatness by bringing out the greatness in others. And the way we can do that is by loving unconditionally and dreaming with them audaciously. So when you wake up tomorrow and you don't have this worthiness rally to go to, how will you strive for greatness? By bringing out the greatness in others. Thanks, Andrea.
Oh my gosh, where's the unmute? Wow, wow. It's like drop the mic there. Wow, Tim, that was amazing. That was amazing. And for the record, I'm seeing if I could use Tim in my own workplace because that was great. Thank you so much, Tim. So I love that operationalize love in the workplace, dream sessions. That is so great. I want to open it up to anyone that may have comments for Tim or questions, or just share if you could relate to what he said. Who could relate to what Tim was saying?
It's all of the above, Andrea. It's all of it.
Yeah.
It was outstanding. His storytelling abilities are just, I mean, I was captivated from the moment he started speaking. So thank you very much for everything you've shared. And you're absolutely right. You know, and it's interesting. I worked somewhere where I think it was 2007, a senior leader wrote an article about love, and we were trying to change the organization's culture to a more customer-centric focus, and it wasn't well received. And that was 2007. So this work has been in action for quite some time, and kudos to you for creating something like dream sessions. I think that's phenomenal, and that's a big takeaway from me. So thank you for sharing today. Appreciate it. Outstanding.
Pleasure.
Hi, I'm Sheila. Tim, I'm sorry I was late. I was on call with the East Coast family. Thank you, just dropping in, and you know, by the time your screen came up and just dropping in, your presence and your vision of hope. I will go back to the title of this rally, to start my day, because I'm on West Coast time, was really remarkable. Thank you for that. As far as dream sessions and striving for greatness, this is something that I've always tried to weave into the work I did. I've worked on all kinds of different levels, leading nonprofits, connecting companies with local nonprofits, helping people dream. My job has literally been, I call myself an ambassador for possibilities, because my job has always been to help people, organizations, individuals see what they could do. And for years, people were like, oh, you're just pie in the sky, it's just Pollyanna, et cetera, et cetera. But whenever things did happen, and they did happen, you know, there was like a small core of people that latched on to that possibility. Yes, we could do this. And then we would like pull it apart. And that, what you were saying here, is just reinvigorated my belief that it's still possible to do this. So thank you so much for this. Great way to start my day.
Thank you, Sheila. My pleasure.
Thanks, Sheila. Byron, did you have a question?
Yeah, just very quickly. Tim, thanks very much for that. It was excellent. And, you know, I couldn't help thinking that as you're talking about playing tackle football with your little brother. And is it Mrs. Parisi? Is that her name?
Yes.
Yeah. I got this image of President Zelensky carrying these injured and, folks in Ukraine who've lost hope and carrying them along. And that's who I equated Mrs. Parisi with, was President Zelensky in Ukraine. I don't know where that image came from, but that's what I thought of.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. And Tim, you have a lot of comments of people just loving what you shared on the chat. So thank you so much. That was amazing. I know you have to drop to be with your family, but I love that you were able to be here. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thanks, Andrea. Such a pleasure to be with all of you.
Next, we have Miss Shannon Zell. So Shannon, oh my goodness, I've known Shannon, seems like forever, over 20 years. We actually went to college together, and she is such a bright light. It's no coincidence that one of her favorite colors is yellow and just brightness. She's been through a lot of challenges, just like everyone, but a lot of challenges in her life, and she never ceases to see the positivity, and also just thinking of others all the time. She's so good at keeping in touch, checking up on people. Despite what life throws her way, she always puts other people first. And it's just so refreshing to see that there's such kindness in this world today, despite what's going on. Someone's always thinking of you. Shannon is so creative. I call her like quite a genius, actually, because she's just such a genius in creativity with poetry and drawing and painting and just the way she expresses herself. And I'm so honored to have you, Shannon. I love you, and I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. So I guess I'll start. That painting behind me is like my angel. I painted that, and that's one I just did on my own. I have several other paintings. I've started painting, I guess, after my divorce, but I always have been artistic. And I've been writing poems my whole life. I remember I wrote one like epilogue so long in middle school and won an award, but it really wasn't until later, like in my 20s, that I got back to it. And I've recently moved to be closer to my family, so I'm no longer in Houston, I'm in Mansfield. And in packing, I found several journals. It takes like a whole row in my library to go through, but I'm always constantly thinking of new poems. I've recently put together over 20 poems that is for love, light, and life, which I'm thinking it might be called Heart of Humanity. And I guess I'll start like with the present. But when Andrea started these rallies, it was shortly after George Floyd, and the idea of kindness and acceptance. I got to watch a Zoom call with Notre Dame. I also was fortunate while teaching to attend classes there. And it was really interesting how they approached the situation. And they talked a lot about community. And in this collection of poems, I talk about how we need to restore family to improve every community. And their biggest concern was like children not having a father figure, abortion, abuse, trafficking. And so a decade ago when I took the classes, I had volunteered with, there were only 2 organizations in Houston at the time. Now there's a dozen, and I've actually written poems about those organizations, which will be in another collection called Heroes and Halos. So I'm really happy that I finally, I sold everything. I sold a condo, my car, just to move to Mansfield and give myself a chance to publish and maybe display or share my art more. But I guess part of my creativity comes from incidences in my life that were hard to overcome, and I always would look to the Bible and their poems and their messages and prayer for healing. I had some really awful therapists, I mean, unorthodox, and I've had several hospitalizations and some bad experiences there as well. And it all stems from childhood trauma, and it happened at a school that no longer exists. I was fortunate in a way to run across, by coincidence, a therapy group that knew the abusers from my school, and they said they could fix me and I would never have to worry about the past again, but their ways were not orthodox. They could have made me much worse. So fortunately, my parents had the know-how to avoid that, even though 20 years ago, 30, I don't know, child psychiatry was not very complete. I mean, it's come a long way, but that's another one of my concerns. I write poems to help those that have mental conditions and have to deal with those. When I get really bad, I have like night terrors and flashbacks, and it's almost like PTSD. And with this move, my siblings researched and found a phenomenal doctor. And I mean, she's worked with Holocaust victims, and that's something that's part of my trauma, was that they told me if I ever spoke of my abuse, which I dissociated it and also didn't remember until much later in my teens. So they did a really good job of scaring me, but they said that I would cause World War III. I would lose my family. I would lose everything and be an outcast. And it didn't help that growing up, I also had a bunch of neighborhood girls that were very mean, like the mean girls from the movie. And actually, finding the University of St. Thomas was a blessing. Even though I grew up in Houston, I didn't know of it. And when I went to visit, it was just, the students there were so genuine, it just really clicked. And the friends I have made there are lifelong friends that I can fall back on. I'm very empathetic for so many different reasons, and I will, like, I do research about the situations that bring harm to children, and I try to use my writing to get it out of my system. Like, that's one of my biggest therapies. I have found also an awesome therapist. She's really good, and she actually she has a master's in biblical studies, so like we can discuss the spiritual side, because I was spiritually hurt as well. But I still, like, I'm in a good place. It helps that I have family nearby. I can see my nieces and nephews anytime, and they bring me the greatest joy. It's almost like I get to relive my childhood through them, but they really are a delight. And then I have my dog who's sitting in my lap all curled up right now. So he's like my little earth angel. He follows me around. He wants to be at my side and snuggle all the time. And that's a great therapy as well. I love horses, and there is a place nearby that I plan to volunteer. I just found out that I have advanced arthritis for my age. And I started PT. So that is something that, like when I'm off balance, like I kind of lean to the right and limp. And when I get back to balance, like where the whole body is in sync, I'll feel like 100% then. But Andrea was right. I always reach out to my friends and family, and some of my friends that have children that are going through mental issues, they turn to me, and eventually I may put my experiences in a book. It's really hard to delve too much into that right now. So I mostly just stay current with what's going on and how I see things in a positive light, even in the darkness, because I've gone to the darkness, and luckily I always come out. I know there's some people that have a really hard time. I've read some of their poetry, and it's really different than mine. It's scary, and I read about one poet with schizophrenia, and she sees things, and so she's afraid to ever leave her room. And those people all have voices that many don't hear. And I was a teacher for over 20 years. And one of the things I see as a real need is true mental health in the classroom, mental awareness, and talking really about abuse and how to avoid it in all situations, not just family abuse, but abuse, and it could be a neighbor or someone close to a child that they trust. But when I taught, we had a week of no bullying and no the red ribbon week, and abuse and how to be healthy. And that's just not enough. It should be something they talk about every day. I have researched different trafficking groups that actually have programs, and I really believe that every school should have that in their classroom. Because if a child is being hurt by someone they trust, or being tortured or threatened, they're not going to necessarily speak up. But if it becomes part of the everyday vocabulary, then they may tell a friend who can confide it in teacher. I think teachers don't have the time to do all this, but the school needs to make the time, and they need more counselors, or even volunteers. There's programs where you can volunteer and learn about like the red flags of abuse or trafficking, because you just don't know. And it doesn't hurt to learn that, because you might need it later in life. Like made notes, and I don't know how long have I gone. Did I do my 10? I covered everything, but
yeah, no, do you have any, it's been amazing, Shannon. Any closing words?
I have a poem that I was going to read.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's not from anything that I was going to put in a collection, but I thought it went well with what's going on in the Ukraine. Okay, it's called In Order. In order to end hostility, to live in liberty, to save the refugee, one must listen, one must have discipline, one must be conditioned. Those who take command, those who create a solid plan, those who understand. The goal is peace and unity. The goal is truth and honesty. The goal is end all slavery, to fend for the children, to provide for them, to embrace their freedom. One must be quick. One must capture the sick. One must walk in the filth of it. So that's all.
And that was beautiful. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
And you are such a beautiful human being. You have tons of comments saying how amazing you are, how they love the title of your book, Heroes and Halos, and just so you've just been so resilient and courageous and inspiring through your vulnerability. And I completely agree, and more. You're amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know you could pick to be, someone mentioned bitter and angry, but you are taking it to the complete other side, and even being more caring and paying it forward for others so they don't have to go through the same situation.
Well, I
Any-
always feel like if I was to be bitter and angry and get too sad about it or dwell on it, they win. So, I mean,
That's right. Any comments, feedback, any words for Shannon? Bill?
Hey, Shannon, that was fantastic. You just hit a key point that near and dear to my heart, our family, I think, is how you react if you're bitter, if you're vindictive, you want to get even. The other side has won. And I always say that if I'm the recipient of some unkindness, let's turn it and double down to other people, kindness, and we can create that world. So thank you.
thank you.
Melody?
Shannon, that was beautiful. And it is an exact example of a quote that I share often from Rick Warren. Other people are going to find healing in your wounds. Your greatest life messages and your most effective ministry will come from your deepest hurts. Keep shining your light. You're a candle in the darkness.
Thank you. Who wrote that?
Rick Warren.
Okay.
I can put it in the chat if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I love quotes like that. So.
I do too.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bill and Melody, for sharing. Anyone else? Shannon, looks like you made a couple new friends here. Or should I say fans? Thank you so much, Shannon.
You're welcome.
And shout out to Mr. Zell. I know he was there. Your dad.
Oh, my dad or my brother? I think it was my brother.
Oh, your brother. Okay, your brother.
He did it without showing his face. All he said.
Okay. Yes, Rob Zell, your brother.
Yeah,
That's right.
spying on me. No, I didn't think he was going to make it. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. Next, we have Kara. Where's Kara? There's Kara. Kara, I met through some awesome mutual people that I know. Tim's son is one of them. And she has her own shows as well, and her own beautiful efforts to make sure people have the courage to shine. I know you're all about personal power, Kara. You're about uprooting inherited mindsets and coming down to why you behave the way you do, and you can overcome that to truly be yourself. You have that Deepened Roots podcast, and I've been to some of your shows, the ones that you've also done with Tim, and you have the kindest heart as well. And I love your vulnerability, and I'm so happy that you're here, Kara.
Thank you so much. And it's an honor to be here today. So thank you so much for your kind words and for allowing me to be here with everyone, all these beautiful people. You know, my name is Kara Oelker, and I'm the founder of Deepened Roots, and I'm a personal power coach. Deepened Roots to me is everything. It's a mindset, you know, like you said, I help people uproot mindsets designed to, you know, hold them back, to keep them uncovered, right? And allowing ourselves to deepen in our own roots, which is ourselves. It's not what we were given or inherited or told that we are or should say or whatever. It is our personal power. If we deepen our roots to our personal power, you know, that is everything. That is our essence. And yes, I was involved in showing up perspectives on cancer with the amazing Zone. And he is a 15-year cancer survivor. And he wanted to have this show, this movement around that, having people, creating a safe space for people to show up, share their perspectives around cancer, and really just have this community. And at the time I was like, great, I have a perspective as well, and around cancer. And so my perspective, as I shared on one of the episodes, was that I grew up always knowing cancer very well, not directly, but my mom, when I was very little, when I was 2.5 going on 3, my mom was battling stage 4 breast cancer in the 80s. So that's a big thing. And for her to survive, live a life, always reaching forward, searching for more, always terrified she was going to die from cancer any day now. She eventually had cancer again when I was a teenager, beat that. And again, 13 years later, she had cancer again. And it ultimately claimed her life. And my experience around that was not only that feeling of helplessness, seeing my mom always helpless, feeling helpless, hopeless, but always wanting more, and just always wanting to make up for that lost time, right? Always achieving. With my brother and I growing up, my brother's older than me. I also endured a lot of unpleasant things that come from that. And that was not my mom. When I came around, I never really got to know the true essence of my mom. And so, when we talk about those deepest wounds, right? Those deepest wounds make the biggest stories. Of course it makes sense for me to have this crusade to deepen my roots, right? And to allow other people to deepen theirs. And I have this emotion now because I see emotion on your faces, right? Empathy. And I think that's so beautiful that we all have our stories. We all have these deep wounds. And yet we always have our power. We always have it. We have to recognize that. And so I do have a few points that I want to make sure that I wrote down. I want to make sure that they're clear today. Personal power is something you have a right to have just by being born. We all have it. If you're forced to go against it due to catastrophic reasons, you have to hide yourself for survival. The after effects force us to choose it because it's hard. And who wants to do hard things? Really? Who wakes up and says, I'm going to do hard things today? Sounds like fun. I'm just going to go through punishment, right? But if we lean into this, know that that's just fear talking. It's built around your core belief, built around voices that aren't your own, that told you what to fear. And we all have one or two or three or more. For me, it's that I'm bad and that bad things deserve to happen to me. I also have this core belief that I'm not enough and also that I'm not valid. So when I am Kara, personal power coach, and I'm this badass lady on my podcast, and I'm doing the work, and I'm helping my clients, and I'm also helping with branding, and I'm live stream producing, and I feel that essence, that personal power that I have sought to find within myself, that I know is my actual truth. I still feel that maybe you don't deserve that. Maybe you're just talking crap. Maybe you don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you don't deserve this good thing to happen to you. And so when I feel these core beliefs popping up that are not my own, I stop the presses. I rest. I set boundaries around what can possibly trigger these beliefs until I am grounded in my power again. And even then, I take baby steps to get there. And that's what I'm currently doing now in all my messy glory, and owning and loving it. Because I'm worth it. We're all worth it. And I don't let anyone tell me differently. We all believe our core woundings to survive, but when the threat of survival isn't there anymore, what are you trying to hide from? Ultimately, your resolved past is haunting you. And we've all felt it the last 2 years at least, due to the pandemic, due to the great divide of humanity. Instead of looking at ourselves for the ugly that we choose to perpetuate, we blame others, get triggered by others. We don't hold ourselves accountable, and we don't hold others accountable for repeatedly crossing our boundaries. So I want to part with this. Look at the ugly all around, and look at how you play a part of it and perpetuate it. Look at your words. Do you speak kindly to others, to yourself, or are you dismissive, harsh, or toxically positive? And why? Always the why. Hold those accountable who seem to want to take your power to feed theirs. It's your power. They don't have a right to take it. And you don't have a right to take anyone else's, just to ground it in your own. Find a support system who loves you the way you are, and communicate with them in a way in which all of you can flourish and build on your individual personal power sources. And lastly, seek to evolve always. Do hard things. Seek out the uncomfortable, just waiting to help you grow. Be kind to yourself and the process, and know yourself. Only you know what your personal power looks like. Take time to find it out, and know that you will always have periods of flailing in the winds and soul-crushing discoveries. But that doesn't mean you're any less in your personal power. In fact, it only means you're even more in it, and that you will create more opportunities to be in flow with yourself, the world, and with what's taken your personal power to begin with. So again, it's an honor to be here to speak my truth, right? And I would love to connect with people. You can find me on LinkedIn, Kara Oelker, big old pride flag in the middle. That is me. And you can find me on Instagram under @deepenedroots. And I do have a Deepened Roots podcast. You can check out previous episodes on LinkedIn, my YouTube channel, Deepened Roots, and also on Apple and Spotify, or trying to take it down on Spotify, but definitely on Anchor as well, and Google Podcasts. So connect with me, and I'd love to connect with you back. And again, thank you so much, Andrea, for this opportunity to be with you and everyone today.
Kara, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so incredibly grateful that Tim introduced us and you were able to come on today.
Me too.
So incredibly inspiring. I did not know your story. And at the beginning of the rally, I mentioned the people that are meant to show up today will show up, because we are all guided here for a reason, to hear something today. And I believe that I had to do this because I love all the messages, but your message personally touched me, Kara. Seek to evolve. Seek to evolve is so something I needed to hear. And look at the ugly and what do you do to perpetuate it? Oh, I am so good at doing that.
Yes,
And
we all are. Yes.
so I thank you for that. Truly, truly inspiring. And I know you shared how people get a hold of you. I want to remind everyone, not only share in the chat as well, Kara, but everyone else share in the chat how people can get a hold of you, or if you have links, etc. Questions for Kara? I see Melody with her hand up.
Hi, Kara. I've seen you many times on Tim's show, and I think you
Yes.
are a bright light in the darkness. And I have this set of positive affirmation cards that I was gifted for Christmas, and I've pulled some on the show before.
Love it.
And while you were talking, I pulled one because I love your idea of personal power. So my thought was that's what the card would be. And when I pulled it, I got one that I said, nah, I think there's probably one better in there. Well, the universe said no, because I reshuffled them. And the card I pulled again was the exact same card. So the universe is telling you today, I am who I want to be. That is your personal power. And the universe wanted you to know that because I pulled the same card twice for you.
I love it. I think that it's something that we all can just draw from. You are who you want to be. 100%. I love that, Melody. And you
You're
are such a
welcome.
huge supporter. And it's so good to actually finally Zoom meet you, because I'm like, who is this amazing creature human? Like, who's this amazing human? I need to know her. And so it's so good to actually see you like this. And that's awesome. You are who you want to be.
Right back at you. And God bless
love it.
everything you do, because you do have a very bright personal power to you. And it is a light in the darkness for others. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brad?
Well, first of all, Kara, that was amazing. It's funny when you end up actually seeing somebody that's a kindred spirit, and well, I resonated with everything. I was just like, well, man, there was a reason that I was to be here today. I got rid of a friendship this morning that I had been friends with for 10 years. And there was a major boundary that was crossed. I hadn't heard from this person in quite a while until I ended up disconnecting with them on Facebook, or otherwise probably wouldn't have reached out. But I sent one last text message to say, you know what, I don't feel it would be a positive for us to go ahead and engage in a live conversation, because I know what that would look like. So I just spoke my truth from where I was at. We were in different spots now. And I'm right now in my life, I'm about peace, calm. I'm not about chaos and drama. So, and that relationship was chaos and drama. So, but I love what you said. I mean, I just like, you are enough. You are worthy of love, connection, and belonging. I just see that. It is so cool to go ahead and be part of this today. I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you so very much.
My goodness. Thank you. I appreciate you too. And you can still mourn the loss of your friendship, and you can still love that person who they are, but they never have to be in your life. You can love them as who they are, and then they can just be over there, and then you can be over here as Brad, and you get to be you, and they get to be them. And then you being friends wasn't allowing for that. So that's like the biggest gift for you and that person. You guys just get to be each other. You know, you get to be yourselves away from each other. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Brad, for sharing. And also real quick, I don't mean to hijack, but I will real quick. Jason Freeman, talk about supports. This amazing man, like most beautiful human being I've ever met in my entire life. has been such an incredible support. And if you are not connected with him in any way, please do get connected, because he's just, Jason.
I second
Like
that.
without Jason, like he just, yeah, I wouldn't be as grounded and the way that I am without our correspondence. So, yeah.
Agree. With that, Jason. You're on mute, Jason.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. I learn so much from you every time I hear you speak either directly to me as on something like this. I mean, I love what you are realizing and how you're sharing it with so many people to help your own healing and help the world's healing. It means a great deal. Thanks for being you, my friend.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for being you.
Anyone else for Kara? That was wonderful. I feel cleansed. This is really good. I want to introduce our next speaker. This is very special because it's a couple, a speaker couple. We have Mariah and Byron. I had just, we never really spoke. I mean, we didn't ever speak on one-on-one ever. We just connected via LinkedIn. I actually connected with Mariah with a few things that she's been doing and her content, etc. And I'm like, I really need to get to know this lady a little more. I could just sense the kindness, the aura around her. And I'm so glad I asked her to come on. And then she said, can Byron come on too? I'm like, absolutely. So this is really interesting. And I'm learning more about you, but when you sent me who you are, I'm going to read this. Mariah was an ER and ICU flight nurse, and Byron was a helicopter pilot. Both professions were about lifting each other up, and little did they know they would spend the rest of their life together. They are continuing on and inspiring people, and they most recently have a book and really focused on self-care, gratitude, abundance. And Byron, I haven't met you either, but if you're anything like Mariah, I can't wait to hear more about you. Welcome, you both.
Thank you. He's actually my better half.
Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Yeah, Andrea, thank you so much for the opportunity. We love being with you and all of our new friends here, some of whom we know, some incredibly positive people that we have met through LinkedIn and various other places. EPIC, I'm looking at you.
And Brad.
And Brad, there's Brad.
And
there,
Kara. I mean, we know so many people, Julie, and all these new people to us. Thank you.
So, yeah, this is going to be a wonderful day because next we get to go over to Voice Your Vibe and have fun over there. Anyway, yes, Andrea, thanks for the wonderful introduction. And by the way, big hugs to you for loss of Luna. You know, we give you a big hug for that. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, we are, in fact, we tell people we spent our professional careers raising people up. Me, literally, because I picked them up when I took off and we took off and went higher. And Mariah spent her nursing career elevating people away from their medical and traumatic issues, health issues, and allowing them to recapture their lives. And so we're just continuing to do that. And our latest effort, we have written a book together. We've collaborated on a book, and the title is Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough. And, you know, I'm not going to get preachy here or anything, but I want to add something to what I've heard a few times on the show. We chose that partial title, that You Are More Than Enough, for a reason. because we believe people are not enough. We believe you are more than enough. And the reason we say that is because more, when you think about it, more cannot be defined. It's limitless. And one of the things we focus on in the book, Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough, the focus of it, one of the main topics in it, is that we only limit ourselves. We don't know what our limits are until we limit ourselves. And so that's what we try to maintain throughout the book, and we hope, we think it came across. We'll find out. It's going to be published very, very soon. But as far as, let's see, the second question, why are we here today? Yeah, well, at Andrea's invitation, of course, thank you again for that. But we are here because we see, I think we attract our tribe to us, and I'm not going to get all woo-woo on everybody here, but I think we are energy. We believe we are energy. And when we send out energy, we get that energy back. And if we send out bad vibes everywhere, well, guess what? That's what we're going to end up with. So we try to be as positive as we can possibly be. We try to, in fact, one of the chapters in the book is words matter. And we have offered in the book, we offered suggestions on how to take otherwise negative words and swap them around for positive words. Because, somebody here, I forget who it was, somebody said, we have to be kind in the way we talk to ourselves. And that's really pretty profound when you think about it. That's because what we tell our brain becomes our reality. That's the energy we put into our own selves. And so that's a very important lesson that whoever said that, I forget who it was, but we have to be kind to ourselves first. And with that thought, here's Mariah, the most wonderful woman I ever met in my entire life.
Well, thank you so much, Andrea. And I am pleased to be here too. It's a thrill to have the opportunity. I've met so many people and now to get so many more in my community. Thank you, everyone, for your stories and your support. It's so important that we do support each other in the community, especially when we're looking at kindness and hope and looking to create a better, brighter world for all of us. And in Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough, rediscover your passion, purpose, and love of yourself and life. We look at how we can do that. How do we elevate ourselves? How do we increase our own energy? How do we know that what's inside of us needs to come out and be supportive of everyone else? First, we need to really own that. And so many of you today have spoken about that, how we can build ourselves up to bring it out to others. And isn't that exciting? When we know that somewhere deep inside, we have something that we know is there. We know it. But until we have someone who reaches out a hand and helps us up, and also we're able to reach out a hand to somebody who we know is down just by reaching out. And how important is that? It's a little piece of hope. It's a little bit of kindness. And how much does it take us? How much effort does that take us to just reach our hand out and pull them up? And I know from personal experience, I know every person in here, we've felt that, haven't we? Haven't we felt that before when we reached out because we knew it was the right thing to do? And who felt the most benefit from that? We did. We did. And they did too. Because we all know somebody. We all know somebody who took their life, or know somebody who knows somebody. And it was because they didn't have somebody like you to reach out and lift them up. And it's so incredibly important. And I know each one of you has that inside. And so I want to invite you, that is my story, is just to know that you have this value. You have it in you and you have it to give. And I'm going to encourage you to do so. When you have that moment and you feel maybe down a little bit and maybe things aren't going well, know that somebody else needs your hand up because they are hurting too.
Yeah, and you see why I love this woman so much? This every day is like this. Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of our contributors to the book, Laura Staley, Dr. Laura Staley, she wrote a book called Abundant Heart, and we use one of her quotes in the book. She says, "May you become the person your heart knows you are," and I think that's a wonderful quote. And let me elaborate just a little bit on what Mariah said. In another chapter in the book, we talk about the creative and the competitive mind. And yet another one of our contributors, Dr. Melissa Hughes, she calls herself a neuroscience geek. And she claims that giving of ourselves is actually kind of a selfish act. And let me explain that. She says, when you give something to someone, or you give them a hand up, you give them some solace, or you help them in some way, that releases what she calls the feel-good chemicals in your brain, and it makes you feel so good. So in a way, giving ourselves and giving away and giving help and offering help is a very selfish act because it makes us feel so darn good. And so if that's a way you have to think about it, that's perfectly fine. Go ahead and do it.
So we should be selfish then
So
in
we
that
should
regard.
be selfish. Yeah.
To
Be
give
as
away.
selfish as you can be.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's
well,
right.
we
Yeah.
always remember though that self-care is not selfish.
No.
And I know everyone here believes that because we know it's true. And we were fortunate with Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough. Rediscover your passion, purpose, and love of yourself and life has a personal journey behind each chapter.
Yeah.
And each personal journey was given freely to us by people who self-care really made a difference in their life, and they explained how that worked in their life. One of those people we're here today right now, and that's Brad. And thank you so much for that story, that personal journey, because it allowed everyone to express a moment of vulnerability and how self-care has elevated their life. And we all know that when we are vulnerable, it kind of makes us feel a little bit naked sometimes, and we're uncertain, and that's a little bit of fear and a little bit of anxiety. But what it is real, and we all have that. And when we reach out to each other with these real emotions, we can share the kindness and the hope that's within us. And so, Andrea, I want to thank you so much for allowing us to be on today and to share with this amazing group of people and hear their stories and to tell a little bit of ours too.
Thank you, Andrea. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I could sit here and listen to you both talk forever for the rest of the day. I love it. It's so beautiful and just so reassuring. So thank you so much for all. And I cannot wait to read that book. I have selfishly, I have a lot of questions, but I want to open it up to people as well if they have comments or questions themselves. I get you have tons of great feedback on the chat as well. Anyone? Brad?
Oh, Brad's muted.
Brad's muted.
Yeah, actually, Jason raised his hand first, but
Oh, sorry. Oh, Jason, was that your hand from last time, or is it a new question?
Jason's muted too.
It is my hand from last time, but I would also like to say something this time, but after Brad.
Okay.
well, first of all, these are two of my very favorite people. They are awesome. I probably have talked to both of them. Gosh, I don't know how many times, probably, well, a lot. And Mariah has been a tremendously huge influence, both on me personally, but it's also something that I share in my Hearts at Life coaching as well, that I always recommend about mirror work.
Yeah.
Just some of the things that they have been able to talk about when they raise people up, they really do that well. And I think each of us have that. Yeah, I listened to Kara's story and Andreas and pretty much EPEC and a number of people that I know on here that I see about their posts. no, I'm not cyber stalking you. I just happen to be very attentive about the people that I find that are very kindred spirits. Yeah. So when they talk about the things that are the most impactful on what they end up doing, lifting up people and being mindful of those things that are most important and the very first things that we are and what's selfish and what's not selfish. Narcissism is selfish. Self-care is not. Self-love is not. Vulnerability is not. By the way, for those that as you're sharing with your clients when they're, or those people around you that say, you know, I don't like being vulnerable. But the fact of the matter is, darkness and vulnerability, if you allow vulnerability to flourish and you can encourage somebody, saying, you know, vulnerability is the answer to darkness and also the answer to creativity, because the lack of vulnerability does not allow you to be at your most creative self or your best self. So by the things they're talking about within Journey Well, those types of things are going to end up helping others. So I just wanted to recognize them for who they are, the impact that they have on my life and so many other people's. And I think it's going to be something that I'm looking forward to seeing their book. And I'll put a plug out there for a book that I'm writing at. It's called From My Heart to Yours, I'm Not My Mistakes. And some of that is going to be as a direct result of sharing my journey from childhood trauma all the way into adulthood, dealing with PTSD and dealing with just life and what I've learned. And some of that and how we end up talking about it when I'm wrapping up in the book is going to be a lot of the things that I've learned directly from Mariah and Byron. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you. We appreciate it.
So much.
Yeah.
Wow, Brad, what's the title of your book again?
It's From My Heart to Yours, I Am Not My Mistakes. That hopefully I'll be finishing it up here before the next couple of months and find a publisher or means in order to get that published. That's one of the things I may have talking to Mariah and Byron on and how that they're doing it, so I can, you know, get some insight for that as well.
Yeah,
wow, that is powerful. That's a powerful title. So many things to read. What goodness. Jason, you were going to say something after Brad?
Yeah.
Thanks you too. Great to finally to meet you more when you both kept talking about lifting people up. I kept getting the image of the medical helicopter going down to somewhere where someone is in trauma and in severe challenge, and then you took them into the room of the helicopter and you lifted them up to something new, to new life, almost to healing. It's very beautiful. Thanks for writing your book.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. We appreciate that.
Beck?
So I'm one of the biggest fans of Mariah and Byron, and they are amazing people who lift up everyone with them. And when I watch your videos, live events on LinkedIn, it fills my heart with love for you both, because you are wonderful examples of not only individually as a man and a woman, but also as a couple. And I see what you have so much alike with what I have with my husband, and that's part of the equation is so close to my heart too. But I can't wait for your book to come out, and I am here to support and promote your book, and I will do it in any way I can, because I know that it is going to be so helpful for so many.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I see you guys getting younger and younger every day.
Well, you'll be happy to know that Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough, this first one, Rediscover Your Passion, Purpose, and Love of Yourself in Life, is the first in a series. Yeah. And the next one that's coming out is for couples.
Yeah.
And we have been asked many times by people, so, what's your life like, and now especially people are like, oh, you wrote a book together? Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and the marriage survived.
And it didn't just survive. It's interesting. It thrived.
Sure.
And we have a closer bond now than we did before. But we're starting that book already. And then also that will be followed directly with a mother-daughter's book, because my daughters and I have had issues just like most mothers and daughters have over the years. And this one is to show you can reconnect through being mindset aware.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for the support you guys have all given us.
Thanks
Thank
to
you.
everybody. This means a lot. It's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
You can consider me as your cheerleader.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deepak.
Yes, I'll join that cheerleading squad too, definitely. This has been amazing. So I have a question. I guess I have two. One is, I believe everyone is passionate towards certain things because there's a why, there's a spark that made them be really curious and really attracted to that thing that brings fire to their soul. Why do you do what you do, Mariah and Byron? What caused you? Why are you so passionate about the topic of what you wrote your book about?
Well, we lived on the island of Kauai, and just before we left there, I was given a message, and this was many years ago, actually, about 16, and I knew the message. I was sitting on the shoreline on a rocky front, and there were 6 sea turtles that came up. This never had happened, and the message was clear. It said, you're leaving here, and I didn't want to go. I loved that island. We left to move to Columbus, Ohio to care for Byron's dad in his last days, but we knew we needed to go, and the message was clear. It said, your time here is done, but you are a vessel. There's a message you are to carry forward. And I took that and I learned more holistic therapies and different things throughout my nursing career. But over the pandemic, that message came back and I could no longer push it down. And Byron was at my side every turn, and we knew it was time. And I got on LinkedIn and started signing off Journey Well, and he just supported me and lifted me, and people started following us and saying they needed that message. They needed to hear that they were more than enough. They needed to hear that they could own their own value if they found it deep inside. If someone could help them to find a way out, to be within, to find that joy that is in there. And it's in every single person, Andrea.
Yeah.
You have it. Every beautiful human there has it. And we need to help to bring that forward. And so this is how we managed to get to this spot right now.
This is how we got here, and it's just really, it turns out to be a continuation of what we have always believed. And let me add just one little thing on here, and I'll say this up front, I don't know a lot about the Bible, but I do know there's a reference in the Bible to putting your talent under a bushel basket, or putting your light under a bushel basket. And somebody can explain that better than I do. But I think we all have an obligation to share who we are with the world. And we're all putting this giant, beautiful puzzle together, and everybody has their own unique piece to that puzzle. And I think we all must share that piece, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And
each person here has it.
Yeah.
Every person watching here today, you have that light within you. I sense it, or you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So share it.
And Andrea has a second question, I believe. Was that? Or
well, yes, I do, but I think I saw Shannon. Did you have a question? Oh, were you clapping? Okay.
Thank you.
Did anyone else have a comment or a question?
I just wanted to say I enjoyed everything. My heart is always full when I come to these events. I look forward to every fourth Saturday. Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks,
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Bethine. And I look forward to seeing you too. Okay, so I'll ask my question. So going back to you're more than enough, and you should own your own value. I believe that wholeheartedly, and I'm so good and so passionate about pushing others to see that in themselves. But when it comes to me, that's a different story, and that's something I could relate to when Kara was speaking as well. And so those of us that are so passionate about doing that for others, why do we do this to ourselves? Are we not practicing why don't we practice what we preach? Are we hiding behind making the world better for others because we're too scared to deal with ourselves?
That is an excellent question, and one I am really working through to be as vulnerable and honest and transparent as I can be. Because during the time we wrote the book, first of all, when I started writing on LinkedIn, I had no idea that I could write, okay? I was a nurse, right? So you can put an IV in a baby, whatever. But writing, it was such a shock. I could write. Owning that, there were 2 specific times when we were writing this book, I gave up. One, I was literally shaking in my office. This guy came in and just wrapped his arms around me and, what is it? What is it? Well, it's the imposter. And it shows up on everybody's door, doesn't it? And then the inner critic jumped in at the same time and said, oh God, you think anybody's going to read this? Are you serious? There's not a soul in the world who's going to believe you because what gives you, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's real. And the neat thing is, Andrea, that once you know that, that's when you get to own it. When you get to say, oh, you want us to, see ya.
Yeah.
You don't have any credibility in here. And that's where the mirror work comes in.
Yeah.
Because the more often you do it, so you're brushing your teeth twice a day. And if you quit brushing your teeth twice a day, pretty soon, probably a week, so
You'll lose your friends.
all your friends go by, right? So every time you go to that mirror, you look at that person. And for me, it looks like this. I love you, Mariah. And the reason I do it is because I do it. I love myself. I give people so much value in their life. I am a beautiful person inside and out. And once you start knowing that and owning it, you have the ability to shut that inner critic down easier. And it gets easier and easier and easier. Thank you for playing. We're not talking with you today. I love Mariah. And I invite each and every one of you to start every time you're brushing your teeth. You look in that mirror and you look deep in your own eyes and you say, I love you, followed by your name. Because we know that whatever follows I am, follows you. And when you say I'm an idiot and I'm stupid and I can't believe I did that or whatever that, it follows you. But it's the same. I love you, Mariah. You are a beautiful person. I am amazing. It follows you. And I encourage each of you to know that and own it.
Wow. So I will definitely incorporate that every time I brush my teeth. Mm-hmm. That makes me remember. No, that's brilliant.
Well, and also what I'm telling my clients too is that when you wake up at night and because we all do it, it's like, okay, now I have to think of my grocery list or what I didn't do or what I did 5 years ago to that person or they did to me. Go through the I love you with your eyes closed. You see yourself. You've seen yourself enough times. Go through your I love yous again. Yeah. You can even do that with people that you are not really comfortable with. And I did this when I was working through these issues with my daughters. And I looked each one of them in the eye at night when I was waking up for crazy things. And I said, I love you in each of their names. It was really uncomfortable. Changed my relationship with each of them. I don't know how that worked, but it's true.
It's called energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for giving me the space. I could talk to you guys all day. I'm sorry I'm
That's
hogging the
beautiful.
floor here.
No, you're not. No, it's beautiful.
Let me add just one little
Please.
snippet to that, and I'll let you go and go on to
Yeah.
something else. But at some point, you realize in that process that voice you're hearing, that inner critic, Ariana Huffington calls it the obnoxious roommate living in my attic. And what you realize after a while is that voice you're hearing is your own voice, right, telling you you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough. That's your voice saying that stuff. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. We sparked 2 other questions. Shannon, that's a question, right? Not a hand clap. Yes. Okay, you're muted.
Oh yeah, I'm on. Yes. I just wanted to say how lucky y'all are to have each other. Y'all are such a sweet couple. Hopefully I'll find someone that's just as supportive. Like, I'm fortunate to have my siblings. And I have a painting of like women angels, like in a circle. And it says something to the point like, you need to lift yourself up in order to follow your dream. And I was also thinking of a quote. I don't know the artist's name, but basically everything we create makes us vulnerable, but it's also our self-portrait. So that's something to share.
That's
beautiful. When you're sharing your story. You can share your stories in many ways. So
thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And Maribel?
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, I wanted to just say thank you to both Mariah and Byron for sharing everything you've shared today. I've been on a journey of self-discovery myself, probably taking longer than some would say it's taking way too long, but you know what? All in due time is what I say at this point. And that's what I've had to come to terms with. And in 2020, I was impacted like the rest of the world was by COVID, from the standpoint that it really not only shut down workshops I was doing, but just shut me down completely. And I needed some help. And I turned to Marissa Peer and listened to a lot of her stuff. And so across my bathroom mirrors, I have written, I am enough. But I took it a step further and put it in my guest bathroom and put it in my half bathroom that's downstairs, because it was a message for me, but it was also a message for anyone else that came into my home that maybe needed to see that message, right, for themselves. But today, thank you, Mariah and Byron, because today I'm going to clean those mirrors, that top part that I haven't cleaned over and Windexed for a year and a half now. I need to bring that down, because what it needs to say now is that I am more than enough. And I thank the 2 of you for that. So thank you for giving that to us and to me personally today. Bless you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maribel.
Oh my gosh, that gave me chills. That's amazing. I love it. I love it. Woo. So incredible, incredible. Thank you so much, Mariah and Byron.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Last but not least, now I do want to, in case anyone didn't read the update on LinkedIn, we did have Anastasia from Ukraine that was going to join. She had some hiccups that came up in her life, but she will be joining, she mentioned, next month. So I'm very, very excited about her. And Lorna here is the one that introduced me to her. So thank you, Lorna. But I would love to end with, last but not least, the very beautiful Inside and Out Julie Nierenberg. Julie, I've connected for a while now. We just recently spoke for the first time a couple of weeks ago as well. And she has this gentle energy around her. And little did I know that what she specializes in is just so heart-based. She's an end-of-life educator. And due to the challenges and certain moments in her life that she endured, she was thinking about how to make this particular moment in life for people just more gentle, less stressful. She has very much a heartfelt focus in the way she goes through things and stories, particularly about stories of death and dying. And she has books, she has a memoir, And I just love your point of view, Julie. It's so unique. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Andrea, and to all the presenters today. I feel so honored to be here and be counted among you all. So I am going to give you a little background into my story. I was working as a freelance editor and writer in 2012. I was assisting a woman who taught professionals how to better serve through communication, how to better communicate with those who are dying and with those who are supporting the dying. And that was her specialty. And I was helping her to edit all her stuff that she put out there, all her training and so forth. And it happened very serendipitously because my father found out that he had stage 4 cancer, and he proceeded to die over the next while. And I was able to be with him. I counted that as a privilege to be with him in the times leading up to his death and at the time that he actually transitioned. It was a beautiful experience for me and also heart-wrenching. And he encouraged me, knowing that I was a writer. He had encouraged me for a while. He said, write about our story, write about that. Well, my father was a retired social worker and a very, of course he's my dad, so I'm kind of partial, but he was a very interesting and uniquely conscious human being. And he consciously created his own end of life, leading each of his dearest ones through that experience with a process, a very conscious process. And that just touched me and taught me so much. And so after he passed, I was very, very, at first I was kind of in a bubble because for one thing, I had I don't know how many of you know about shared death experiences, but I had a shared after death experience where my father's light body came to me in a dream vision and took me with him and explored the afterlife. And it was the most beautiful gift. I cannot even tell you. So what happened, that was about 4 days after he died. What happened for me then was that I was kind of in this bubble, this whole new way of perceiving my reality in the world. And by the way, I'll interject one little comment about that. What woke me from my dream was such an intense feeling of joy, because joy was the medium of the afterlife. I felt that if I went on with this, I would die of joy. That's what I thought in that moment. So I woke myself up because it wasn't my time. At any rate, back to my story. So I was in this little, I don't know, bubble of joy and love and acceptance. And then in a few weeks, 3-4 weeks, I felt that I was mowed over by a tsunami of grief. My father and I had been so close, and that's what I felt, truly a tsunami of grief. And being the writer that I am, I decided that journaling about that would be a good way to go. So what I did is I created a journal where I told myself the story of what had happened, little by little. I did it over a period of many weeks. So I'd write a little bit, put it away. I would come back to it, read what I had written so far, and then write some more. And I did this process until I told myself the whole little story around his death and his dying process and my being there. And so then I had this journal, and I shared parts of it with some significant people and in my life, and they said, you got to publish this. So I had helped many other people get published, but as far as publishing my own writing, especially a very personal, very raw memoir. I hadn't done that, but I did it. It was easy enough to do. Self-publishing is a breeze, and it's breezier than ever nowadays for anybody who's interested. And so I published it, and then I was like, well, what do I do with this? So I started sharing it out to people who support the dying and the bereaved, and it was received amazingly well. Through that book, I'm now connected to over 4,500 people in that category from all around the world, just through LinkedIn, let alone other sources. And what happened then was so amazing to me. People started sharing back to me, sharing their stories with me, sending me what I looked at eventually as chapters, or they'd send whole books to me about their own experiences in this process. And I felt a very sacred honor, like I was the keeper of the stories. What would I do with that? Well, fortuitously at the time, a social worker from Montreal who wanted to review my book reached out to me, and we had a phone conversation. I had never met her. Victoria Brewster is her name. And we discovered that we were of one mind, and we both had many, many stories. And so what we did is we put together an anthology of, there were 54 contributors to this book. It's called Journey's End. And we published that in 2018, 17 maybe, 2017. And since then, we've republished it as 2 separate volumes because it was so big as one volume. And this is a very comprehensive book. It gives people, anyone, whether you're a professional or a layperson, it gives you a whole spectrum of experiences around death and dying, because there are no 2 experiences that are exactly the same. Everybody's experience is different. And I continued to write and curate content in this arena. And I had another thing that happened to me. I found out my eyesight started to go, and my right eye is like a black curtain coming over my eye. What was happening was I had a brain tumor, and it was occluding my optic nerve and causing me to go blind in one eye. The tumor, when they found it, it was a benign tumor called a meningioma, but it was in a very serious location, right here, like a third eye, right behind my eyeballs, and wrapped around my internal carotid artery. Important place, right? So something had to be done, especially if I wanted to preserve my vision. So that was 2015 when we discovered this tumor. And over the next 9 months or so, I went through an arduous process of trying to figure out what to do. Surgery was very risky, but not doing something was also very risky. And so I journaled, lo and behold, the writer that I am, I journaled about this whole process, and I wrote. What I did was I wrote to people. I created my own ring of support. I have excellent friendships, and all of these people were so vital to the process of me sorting through the options and trying to figure out what to do. Long story short, I chose a treatment. I got that treatment, and before it was even done, my eyesight returned. And it's several years later now. I've gone for 6 years, and the tumor is stable in size, which is good. And so I published that book as well. My journal about that whole experience, a lot of good humor in there. And also there were chapters that showed my frustration, but it showed the process that I went through trying to decide about a serious health issue. And I thought others could learn from that as well. And so I published it 1 week before my late husband passed away. So it was a hard time. I didn't really do much with that book. That book is called It Is What It Is, Learning to Live with My Brain Tumor. My husband died of stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And if any of you know much about cancers, pancreatic cancer is one of the worst you want to get. You don't want to get any, by the way. That's my tip for you. But it's one of the worst because it's very, very hard to detect. And almost all the time, unless there's some other reason that they are in there looking for stuff, almost all the time, it's fatal. And it took him 7 months after the pronouncement that he actually had this until he passed away. And it was, even though I had been in this genre, if you will, of death and dying, and knew lots of things about it, including my own experience with my dad, it was quite different to experience that with my beloved husband. But I did, and some, I got the sense from so many things that were happening in my life, including these experiences, that this direction was very much for me. I felt quite purposeful. And when I would think about it, when I would write about it, I did a lot of blogging around my husband's passing and so forth. I would feel what I call the divine sign, which is for me goosebumps. I get a wave of goosebumps. That's kind of like an affirmation. Yes, Julie, that you're on the right path. And the path I was feeling that about was doing something in the realm of death and dying to bring that topic into a more accepted realm in our culture. We try to make it a taboo, and we're often not prepared for it because of that. So I ended up enrolling myself in a course called Before I Go Solutions, where I became a certified facilitator, learn in the art of coaching people, educating people, and coaching them to prepare for their own end of life. And I feel that it's such a gift that we can give to ourselves. It's a gift of knowing that all our ducks are in a row. And if you haven't really gone into that study of end of life preparedness, you might think, well, how many ducks are there? Well, there are a lot of ducks. If you think about all the things that would really make it easier for oneself and for one's loved ones when it's our turn to die. So I am now offering coaching in that realm. I have a business now called End of Life Matters. And I just finished actually my first 7-week group, coaching them through creating their end of life plans. And anyway, I every day, every week, I don't know if every day, but at least every week, I feel that I have a new opportunity that comes my way that builds on this this path for me. And I feel very purposeful, and it gives me a great deal to wake up for every day and be grateful for. And I think I've probably gone over my 10 minutes. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for creating this event, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Julie. You have certainly gone through a lot, and you continue to show such strength and love through it. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And the work that you do. It's so very important. And it truly opened my eyes to this whole other area that I took for granted. So thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm going to do some of this because I'm feeling the love.
Now you've gotten some great feedback as well in the chat.
Oh, I'll have to read that. Thank you so much.
I'd like to open it up. Let's see, it was Kara or Brad first? I didn't see. Kara? Okay, Kara.
Hey, okay, so very, very interesting. I love that you are very energetic and spiritual, like you embody all of that. In my own, experiences with loved ones passing, like learning afterwards that that is actually a thing, and it would be extremely helpful, like preparing, right? My mom, she eventually, so her last cancer was lung cancer, and it metastasized to brain. So of course, brain cancer is any type of anything with the brain is so different. And thank goodness that your tumor is benign. It's very interesting that you're still living with a tumor. And I guess a lot of it is just like, just commentary and notes, but I do have a question.
Sure,
Just
ask
because
it.
like going like with my mom having brain cancer, and it was different. So it affected it. One, it was cancer, but two, it was in different parts. There were multiples. And so it affected her differently. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know what I'm going to wake up to. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. But I do have a question in that. And I hope this doesn't come across crass. Have you named your tumor? I know people who have named their tumors.
Yeah. So by the way, some of the book that I wrote about it, about 50% of it is, I think, pretty hilarious. It's me kind of making fun of myself and this whole situation. I mean, even the very first chapter starts out that way, because the way I found out in the doctor's office, to me, it was like, what? Are you sure? Are you sure it's not like some Star Trekian alien? I mean, I had to make fun of, what are you going to do? I had to make fun of it. But anyway, I had to, that's me. So I'm sorry, did I name it? So here's how that went. I was starting to do that, and my children, both my daughters were like, no, you are not gonna name that thing. So I call it She Who Shall Not Be Named.
Oh,
and we
I
all know
love
what
it.
that makes reference to, but at any rate, or maybe we don't, but if you're a Harry Potter fan, you do. So yes, I call it because I wanted to be kind to it. I didn't want it to really, for a long time, I had kind of a mantra of shrink away, go away, totally disappear. I wanted that, but it's not going to happen. So the best possibility for me, say the neuro-oncologists, is for that tumor to either stay the size that it is now or barely shrink over the years. And the reason is, if it were to have shrunk quickly after the treatment, it could also grow back quickly. That would be a sign of it being a rapidly growing tumor. And it is teaching us after 6 years that it is not. It is a very, very slow growing tumor. And the reason I say growing is because when the cells in the tumor die is when they try to divide and multiply. That's when they actually die from the treatment that I received. So it's dying very, very slowly. And that's the safest way for me. Yeah.
No, that makes complete sense. And it's so interesting how this tumor has become you, and therefore, because you do delve into that, this has become your teacher.
So sometimes I wonder about my vision, and it's partly because I'm also getting cataracts. I'm of that age, and sun exposure in my younger life, that cataracts are starting to show up. And so I have and I also have, what do you call, floaters? And, these
Oh,
are
yeah.
things that are in the back of your eyeball that, look like little rodents running through your house every so often, things like that. And so, the cataract is more just a slight blurriness, and the eye doctor says it's not bad enough to do anything about it yet. But so there's a part of me that's like, is that from the tumor again? Or, but it's not, it's just floater rodents and cataract. Yeah.
I'm not laughing. I'm just like, I get it. Like, it just makes sense. And I love your sense of humor and embracing it, because you're like, I literally have no choice. So let's just make this part of the dialogue. So
yeah. And so one of the things I did is I made up songs about it. So, song lyrics. And I put them to well-known tunes because it made so much sense. You aren't nothing but a brain tumor. I mean, there's all kinds of, I have, that's not my best singing voice. I have a whole bunch of song lyrics that I made up, and they're good. They're funny, but my publisher wouldn't let me use them, because to do that, even though the tune is just implied, and I apologized on every page that I wrote that. Apologies to, the person who wrote the song, but they wouldn't let me publish those. So maybe I'll self-publish those one of these days, and just let the music world come after me for my special use of their tunes. We'll see. But I had an actual publisher for that book, so I had to mind their rules, and I understand that anyway. So I'm sorry I'm babbling on here, Brad.
That's awesome.
Well, first of all, amazing story, and I love your energy, and my condolences for the loss of your husband. I know well about pancreatic cancer. My dad passed away of pancreatic cancer on December 7th of 1980. And anybody knows anything about that particular day, my dad was in the Navy. I was in the Navy. It was a Sunday when he passed, and I was on duty that day that I got the call. So my dad was a U.S. history teacher, and I kept thinking as I'm driving, I says, "Dad, do you really think I'm going to go ahead and miss that day?" But part of it becomes, as I look at what you're talking about for going through that, how do you prepare? I'm thinking, I know how talking to my dad. And I know I've prepared for everything for my loved ones. I know where I have all my burial types of things. I've got my last wishes, my living trust, my living will, the gifts where they're going to end up going, what I want in my last wishes. What else do you do? I'm just curious as far as how do you prepare them? It's amazing that you end up doing that, and what a gift that is for them, and be able to celebrate.
I think it truly is a gift. Many of the things that you might not think of, and wills and powers of attorney are very important, and you have to get them finalized, or I recommend that you get them finalized by a lawyer, not just. There is an organic will that people can do, but if you have any particulars at all, and most of us do, I definitely recommend lawyers for that. That's not what I do. However, I help people make the decisions about that. And one of the very toughest decisions I've found that people have is who shall I leave as my executor? Who shall I name as my executor? Who shall I name as my power of attorney over my health care? Heaven forbid I should need that and can't speak for myself. Who do I trust with that or burden with that? Depending on how the people look at it. Those are very hard decisions to make. And another very hard decision is to decide what you prefer at your end of life, to be specifically outlining how do I want that to go, if possible, and it's important to do that, giving that information to your power of attorney. And depending on where you're from, it's called something else. But if you're in Great Britain, it has a different name. But conveying that information is the most important thing. Giving it, making the decisions, but then conveying it to the right people. But there are lots of other things that people need to do to get ready if they really want to have their ducks all in a row. One is called Swedish death cleaning. Have you ever heard of that?
No, what is that?
Basically that means decluttering. You know, get rid of everything that you don't need or want to, you know, hang on to. And with everything else, designate who it's going to go to. Go ahead and give it to them now if you feel comfortable doing so. Or, you know, put a little tag on there. This goes to Susan, you know. And anyway.
I actually did that.
Yeah.
I actually did that. Matter of fact, I started doing that last year, and the things that, you know, and the young man that I ended up giving it to, he was just like, "Are you sure you want anything for this?" And I said, "No." I said, "I want you to start enjoying it now. Why are you going to wait till that?" And I said, "You're young. You do things that you can enjoy this with, and I want you to go ahead and have it. You know, I love you like one of my kids. So why not?"
Well, I can speak from experience that one of the things I inherited, I'm laughing around that, inherited from my grandparents, from my father and my mother, and then from my late husband, is all their stuff. Some of it sentimental, important, you know, whatever it may be, but now I have it. My two daughters don't want it. What am I going to do with this stuff? You know, and anyway, so I'm still, that Swedish death cleaning piece is one that I'm going to be doing from now until perpetuity, you know. So anyway, that's just what is. And I admire my daughters because they're much more minimalistic than I am. And they want to be that way. And I'm good for them. I'm happy for them. I hope they can maintain that. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that.
Oh gosh, thank you all. Thank you, Andrea, very much.
I appreciate your outlook. It truly is a breath of fresh air.
It's a privilege to be here.
Thanks, Julie. I know we're at time, but any last comments before we say goodbye?
Is it possible to save the chat?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this whole chat saves. So if you want a copy, I can send you one.
I just figured out how to do it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I also will have this on YouTube. I'll let everyone know when that's available. But thank you, everybody. This has been, as always, very inspiring. So grateful for all the speakers today. And if you know of anyone else that has a story that would benefit humanity and the earth just to make us a better place, please share their names with me. Or if you would like to speak, I see a couple people here haven't spoken. If you'd like to speak, I would love to have you.